So Morten, could we start the presentation and maybe Rikke could join us later?
Absolutely.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, and then welcome back. We now have the pleasure to present Impero. I hope that the company's CEO, Rikke Stampe-Skov, will be here in one moment. She's just having some issues with the mic. But hopefully, or at least we have the CFO, Morten Lehmann Nielsen, and I hope that you will take us through the company and also the financials. So please go ahead.
Thank you. We can't hear you, Rikke. So I'll just start with the presentation. It seems like Rikke is trying to reconnect. So besides, thanks a lot, Kasper, for inviting us to the SaaS seminar. I'm Morten Lehmann Nielsen. I'm the CFO of Impero, and together with me today we have Rikke, who is the CEO and who has a strong background within the space of GRC, besides from having spent time with some large corporations like Odger Berndsen and PwC. We'll jump to the next slide here, which is defining the market and the space that we operate within in Impero. We are in the B2B SaaS market. We are providing a platform to manage GRC for larger corporations, and we operate in a space with estimated value of 200 billion DKK, and an estimated growth of 13%. It is a very interesting space to be within because of a significant demand for compliance for this type of companies. Our primary focus is Northwestern Europe, because it's a market where the need for compliance is significant, and where there is regulations that also in many countries require that companies are able to live up to the requirements from both the public sector and also from or more on the ESG side. In total, we estimate the market within our Northwestern Europe in the top tier and the mid-market to be around 2 billion Danish. And then over time, we will of course also focus on markets outside of Northwestern Europe, where the market within our space is approximately 4.4 billion. So we see a total addressable market within our solutions to be around 6 billion DKK. Rikke,
Kasper,
are you?
Kasper, a quick question. Can you hear me now?
Yes, you are through. So
Isn't that
take it
amazing?
from here.
This is my favorite part of these seminars. Okay, thank you very much, Morten, for that.
Great to have you with us, Rikke.
Yeah, thank you very much for the.
I'll let you continue, and then I'll come back when we look at the numbers.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you very much, and thank you, and welcome to everybody listening in. And sorry about this slight delay in getting on board. I'll move forward to the next slide, talking a little bit about. So now we've talked about the market, and we would like to talk a little bit about what platform we are actually providing, and we'll also cover, of course, the customers and a little bit about how the customers are using us and in what direction we're going in terms of product development too. As Morten just said, it's a really big market growing intensively, and what we are providing is a very scalable platform for this market, with the key feature of actually digitizing risk and control workflows. We've got 4 different modules in the platform, starting out with the identification and mitigation of your risks. So helping these large global companies to identify and mitigate the risks that may be within operational risks or financial risks or tax risks, etc. And also one of our most recent enhancements, actually enabling the customers to follow the development in risk over time. Secondly, we've got the control management platform where you can actually drive all your control activities across various compliance domains to enable your entire organization to be part of your compliance culture and your control environment. So you can send out controls to everybody, and then a control is essentially a task. Then there's the documentation part, where we store all documentation of your risk and control activities in Impero, making it very easy for the auditors or other authorities to actually go in and see, have you done what you're telling that you want to do as a company. So keeping all of that in store, and then of course the reporting part, where we can continuously report on the development and in your compliance setup, and also making sure that you can follow up on, are there any areas where you're not doing as good as you should, or are there anybody where you can really learn from because they're doing tremendously good. The value creation is very much related to efficiency, of course the assurance that you provide that you do what you want to do, but also a super easy adoption where we allow global rollouts of the platform without any training of end users. So really easy to use, really easy to scale, really easy to roll out across large organizations. Obviously, enterprise security level with the customers that are using us, and I will just, when I go to the next slide, you might get a feel for these are customers who are fairly much into us delivering a very secure platform. So one of the latest newcomers is Bank Austria, part of UniCredit, so a very large European financial institution. We've got Siemens, Volkswagen, Arla, the likes, so large global organization within pretty different industries. You see Group M, HSBC, Hempel, Stark, etc. So across industries, large organization with complex structures with the need to simplify their compliance. We have somewhat over 100 customers, 10 of the Forbes Global 2000 2022 customers, 15% of the most traded German listed companies, 1/3 of the most traded Danish companies on the OMX C25. Customers headquartered in 10 countries, mainly Northwestern Europe, but also I think we have some issues with the sound, but I don't think it's from my side.
It's working fine, so let's continue right.
Yeah, and then we have these big four partnerships. So those would be with KPMG, PwC, etc. in 9 countries. And the reason why they're listed here is that they are fairly important for our go-to-market strategy. So when we enter a new market, we typically go in via a partner, brings in some of the references that we need to grow on our own. And then we add direct sales, inbound lead generation, etc. to our expansion, our further expansion in the markets. So that was a little bit on the customer side. And moving forward to what do they use us for? Well, we do support activities across numerous compliance domains. We often see that we start small, so we might start with financial compliance, move into a month-end closing, move further into tax, help with the tax compliance management system, deadline monitoring, transfer pricing documentations, could be VAT, customs, etc. But also we see an increasing need to move towards ESG. So a lot of new requirements are coming for companies for their abilities to actually report auditable ESG numbers. And this is where we come into the picture. And we have a slide later on with a quote from Stark, and that's one of the companies that with more than 10,000 employees and more than 400 entities, we see them moving into the ESG arena and saying, okay, everything we do in the other domains in terms of compliance, we need that for ESG as well. And we expect to see increased interest in this area. Then there's, of course, areas like Sarbanes-Oxley, so companies living under the Sarbanes-Oxley regime using us for their internal controls, and seeing that increasingly also in the UK, where the UK SOX is about to come live. So that was a little bit about what we used for, and moving forward then to a quick glance towards the future. Obviously, we continuously develop new functionalities, new features within our existing modules. We are also building new modules. But what we see a specific need for is the ability to support compliance processes end-to-end via integrations. So we already have some integrations, say to Okta, or we've recently released our first integration towards Power BI. We have a lot of the big customers using Power BI for their reporting, so integrating with them and looking into more integrations towards, say, process mining or data mining systems, ERP systems, etc. So this is what is in store for our customers, that we work on actually becoming a more integrated part of the entire GRC landscape. So those were the words in terms of market, product, customers, and where we're heading. And with that, I would like to leave the word to you, Morten.
Thank you, Rikke. And oops, it went too fast. I will just change the slide here. Thank you. And I will talk you through some of the numbers. I'll start with the SaaS metrics, and we'll start with the annual recurring revenue. If we take a look at the development for the past 12 months, from end of Q1 21, we have grown 44% to end Q1 here in 22. We had a churn of 600,000 in this period, a nice uplift from existing customers of 2.4 million, and new customers coming in with 4 million, leaving us with an ARR at the end of Q1 of 19 million. If we take a look at the other chart to the right here, we see the quarterly ARR development, and there is some kind of seasonality, at least historically, some kind of seasonality in our business, with stronger growth in Q3 and Q4 compared to the other quarters. If we look into the metrics, we see that the average revenue per account, the ARPA, has also improved nicely. It's not just a reflection of larger clients, new larger clients coming in, but also reflecting that we have a strong uplift on our existing customers, as we saw before. And compared to in Q1 21, the uplift on existing customers has increased from 14% to 18%. And at the same time, we have improved our churn, so that it has improved from 7% churn in Q1 21 to 5% this year, and leaving us with a nice improvement in our net revenue retention, which is 113% end of Q1. And besides Stark, that Rikke already mentioned, that has used us within different domains, then we also see Group M as a very interesting customer. It's one of the world's largest media agencies that started using us in the Nordics, and then saw that there was further opportunities with the Impero platform to use it on a global basis. And it's an example, and there are many of those of customers that see that either within the existing domains or within new domains, that they can expand the use of Impero, and while we'll continue to see a good uplift on our existing customers. And taking a look at the financial figures, then we have, by end of Q1, a revenue of 4.2 million. It's important when you look at a business like ours within this SaaS space, that we are selling, of course, on a subscription base, and most of our customers are paying 1 year at a time. That's the vast majority. So we'll have often a stronger cash flow compared to what you'll see in our EBITDA, and therefore also that our annual recurring revenue is stronger than our revenue, as our revenue is recognized as we move along. So a customer that's onboarded in December will only count for 1/12 in the months where they onboarded, but the ARR will of course account for 12 months, and so will the cash flow. The comparison numbers here is to the quarter just before we went public, before we got listed, which happened in April 2021. So there are, of course, within other external expenses within staff costs, we are seeing some significant increases, which is due to the investments we have done in scaling Impero and creating the foundation for future growth. Looking at our guidance, then we for 2022 we guide within the range of ARR of 26 to 29 million, and an EBITDA in the range of -22 to -18 million. This guidance is based on some assumptions that, of course, we are able to retain and attract the partners that we work with, and often feeds many of our customers. Also, that we can in the labor market that we're in Europe right now, that we are able to retain and attract both commercial and technical profiles. But another important assumption is also the onboarding of customers and the timing hereof. As we have relatively large customers, not that we have few, but of course there are companies that have more than us, and we are dependent on our ability to close a customer in a given month. So it can impact our ARR whether we close a customer in December or in January. Also, the situation we see in Europe right now with the war in Ukraine, then our assumption is also based on that we don't see any further escalation of the geopolitical situation in Europe and the impact that may have on some of our customers. And then I think that leaves time for questions.
Perfect. Thank you, Morten and Rikke. So let's jump to the Q&A, and we have some questions, and let's start with the first one here. So you have a very solid position in the DACH region, and currently we are seeing a scandal in Germany on the ESG and greenwashing area. Do you see some big customer requests on compliance in this area, or what do you observe in the market currently from the DACH region?
What we observe in the market is indeed a lot of interest. It's also a lot of searching in terms of taking ESG to the next level and really starting to get your hands around how you're actually going to do this. So there's a lot of searching out there in terms of figuring out how can we do this and what are the real needs we have in order to deliver on our promises also within this, and not jumping into the greenwashing. ESG is somewhat different from the financial compliance side, because on the financial compliance, you have your ERP system that delivers all the data that you're then controlling. But you don't have an ERP system within ESG. So you have so many different data sources, and you need to figure out how to go about collecting all these data, controlling them properly, and being able to get them audited. And this is obviously where we come into the picture with a strong solution that serves as a really, really strong audit trail, but also in an arena where people are looking and trying to figure out what's the best way to go about this, because it's so new.
Perfect. And if we are staying in the market terms and looking at the market, so do you see some push in terms of new regulations within taxes and so on that you are also helping a lot of companies with?
Yes, we do. And they're actually pretty different from market to market. So they have some very specific tax legislation in Germany that is super interesting for us in terms of the companies needing to have a tax compliance management system in place. In the UK, we have different sets of tax regulation with SAO, for instance, where you have to adhere to that, and you will have to adhere to different tax legislations in different countries, and we can accommodate these different legislations or the compliance journey that you need to go through, and we do that together with our partners.
Perfect. Let's go to, that's a question here of, you can say in the competitor space. What is your largest advantage compared to larger enterprise solutions within governance, risk and compliance?
At least one of them is the ease of use and therefore also the ease of implementation. To give you an example, we had a large Danish customer joining us a few years back, and they were talking about how they were to go about the implementation of internal controls in finance, and automating and digitizing that process. And they had it was just before COVID, so they had all their finance managers from the global entities gathered in Denmark. And we went to their conference, gave a 15-minute introduction to Impero, sent everybody a control that they had to deliver on and document. And they did that in the room, and within 5 minutes, they had all done it. And they were like, okay, is this what we're going to receive? Yeah. So they were actually, it was super easy to convince them that this was something that we could send out to employees all over the world, who would then happily fill in the controls, document what they were doing, and submit it, and then they were done. So the ease of use is really, really important. Actually, it's also fairly well known among our customers that we do reduce a lot of stress, because we put things into order and it just runs smoothly. So we take a lot of stress out of some of the rather stressful situations you have around month-end closing, etc. And that's obviously also very valued.
All right, let's go to some of the SaaS metrics, Morten. You mentioned them, and you highlight the uplift of 18% and the churn of 5%. From an investor perspective, is these metrics some that you are expected to continue, or do you have any targets or something like that investors could use for, or is it higher than you expect? I know you have the land and expand strategy, so is the uplift and of course the low churn rate a part of this, and do you think it can continue going forward?
You are completely right. We have this land and expand strategy, and that is to retain the good customers we have and ensure that they don't leave us and that they don't downgrade. And at the same time that we do what we can to sell more to also to existing customers. And that goes pretty well. And that's also what the numbers show. And we definitely plan to continue to do well here. So yes, that's definitely part of our strategy.
Perfect. Well, with that, I would say thank you very much to you, Morten, and also to you, Rikke, for the presentation, and also for answering all the questions. Next up, we have the first Finnish listed companies presenting today. It's Heroes.